I always say, the longer you have to plan, the less headaches you're going to have on your way to your destination. But if you don't know where you're going, any destination is fine. Nobody ever just throws a sail up and says, well, let's see where this takes us. They're usually doing it for a direction. And if you know where you're going, you can maneuver it a lot quicker and a lot more efficient.
Hey, Uncommon Leaders, welcome back. This is the Uncommon Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Gallagher, and today we're talking about a topic I love to talk about, and that's legacy. Building it, protecting it, and passing it on to the next generation with intention, not accidentally. Our guy today that we're going to chat with, I love this guy, Jim Erben, the president of Erben Associates, a firm that is one of the fastest growing in the country, multiple years on the Inc. 5000 list, but a partner for business owners navigating what would be the complex world of exiting and succession. And listen, as you hear that word, not everyone listening to this podcast is a business owner per se that'll be thinking about that. But if you're a leader, you should always be thinking about your legacy. You should always be thinking about your succession plan. And there's going to be something in this for you today. Jim's an international speaker and a distinguished advisor, so I think you're going to love the wisdom he's going to give us today. Jim, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I can't wait. I know we teed this up just a little bit beforehand with regards to what we're going to chat about today, but I know you're going to add value to the listeners, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. But I always start my first-time guests with the same question, and that's to ask you to tell me a story from your childhood that still impacts who you are today as a person or as a leader.
My dad was my mentor. He was my baseball coach. He's, just everything, even up into adulthood. And I remember him telling me a story when I was having trouble with a friend. I was probably in junior high or maybe even late elementary school. And I just had a friend that turned out to not be a very good friend. And he told me something and he shared it with me the rest of my life. And it stuck with me the rest of my life. He said, when you're looking for eagles, they never flock with buzzards. So don't be hanging around buzzards looking for an eagle. Hang around other eagles looking for eagles. And he goes, there's never a crossover. You never see a flock of buzzards and eagles swirling around together. And it has resonated with me through the business. When we're asking somebody for a personal introduction to a business owner, we only take great clients that are awesome people, well-grounded, and have their, values in order. And those are the kind of people we get introduced to versus others that are not like that. Those are who they get introduced to because they all hang out together.
Mm-hmm. Jamie, talk about it. I mean, many things come to my mind, from a leadership perspective inside of that. You are the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. That's one of those things. And you're exactly right. Don't expect to be finding eagles hanging around with the buzzards as you go forward. And then you and I shared a little bit about my recent story and the guys I ended up with on the trails of a Spartan race. But the name of our team was Raise the Average. That if you're going to be in a group of people, ultimately, as you stand around, you should be raising the average as you walk into that room and making sure the people that you hang around with are raising your average as well as you go forward. So I love that analogy of using the eagles and the buzzards too. There's no doubt about it. You got to be hanging around the right people. And your dad was wise to give you that advice. So
it was really good advice. It was
I think that's really cool. So leaders, you just got one of the best tips you can get as you go forward, and that's to hang around with people who are going to raise you up. There's no doubt about it. So, Jim, let's jump right into it with regards to Erben Associates and who you are and your organization. You help business leaders, business owners think about exit planning, okay? When's the best time for a business owner to think about succession or exit planning then?
Yesterday. And I say that not flippantly. If you think about your business, John, any business owner that listens to this, if you had a twin brother or sister that had an identical situation as you, identical business, identical family, identical resources, everything else, and you came up with a well thought out plan of how you were going to someday leave the business, whether it's to inside, kids or key executives or to a third party, complete with a robust plan that, for business continuity purposes, that doesn't blow up your family or your business. And your twin just kept doing what they're doing and hoping someday they had a plan. Who's more likely to accomplish their objectives? I mean, it's a twin person analogy, I always say. And we usually like to work with people 3 to 15 or 20 years out, because the longer you have to plan, the less headaches you're going to have on your way to your destination. And I always tell people, I'm not a sailor. I like being sailed. I don't know the first thing about raising a sail. But if you don't know where you're going, any destination is fine. Nobody ever just throws a sail up and says, well, let's see where this takes us. They're usually doing it for a direction. And if you know where you're going, you can maneuver it a lot quicker and a lot more efficient.
Love that. Having that target, no doubt about it. And I'm sure that, to your point, that twin analogy, those who don't have a target and they just arrive, they will arrive at some destination. And to your point, they may get to a certain location and not find it. So maybe that's one of the barriers ultimately that folks are running into. So one of them is timing. Get started yesterday or some other time. Certainly if you didn't get started yesterday, today then is the right day to get started. But what are some of the other common mistakes that you see, these business owners or leaders making with regards to, succession planning or not doing that exit planning they need to do?
John, I would probably say, and I'm not over hammering the prior comment, but just going forward and thinking a plan is magically just going to appear out of the clouds, or that postponing a planning initiative of this consequence is a good idea. First of all, we never know when we're going to be taken off this earth and headed to heaven. You have a lot at risk in the business. You have a lot at risk with your family. Also, I find it interesting that in all of the people that we work with, probably 40% are doing internal transitions. Sometimes business owners, mom and pops, mom and dad, are not being brutally honest with themselves, because, all of a sudden, little Joey's been running a business for 15 years. And the next thing you know, little Susie all of a sudden needs a job, and we put her in there in the corner suite and think that that's not going to cause any problems in the company. It does. It impacts the culture. So those are two of the things. The other thing I see a lot of is people have 100% misalignment of their personal wealth and their ultimate exit from the business. They're usually because they've been done by two different organizations, two different accountants, maybe advisors, whatever, lawyers. And if you sync them up and you put money away on the personal side as it grows up and the value of the business grows up, at some point, that's when somebody like us calls you and says, hey, John, guess what? It's time for you and your wife. You're playing with the dealer's money now. You can exit with a 92% chance of never running out of money. And I think about people that don't do that. How do they know when they can exit and live happily ever after? Because that's everybody's fear. I remember in my dad's 70s, I said, how are things going? He goes, good. I said, why are you reading the obituaries? He goes, I want to make sure my name's not in it. And the second one is, he goes, at my age, son, I don't even buy green bananas. My last comment would be that most business owners do not know the market value of their business. It's interesting to me. They know the market value of their house because they get, real estate appraisals or tax appraisals. They probably know the value of their $100,000, $250,000, $500,000 investment account, whether it's 401k or not, because you're looking on that every day. Yet they have a business that could be worth millions, and they have no idea what the market level is of that business. And it's stunning to me. I'd say 90% of the business owners we come across have no idea what the market value is unless they just got an offer.
Yeah, unless somebody just comes in and makes an offer to them, right? Hey, I want to buy your business today. There's no thinking in terms of going through that.
Right.
I can't imagine. And as you talked about that, like there's three different lanes. You really talked about three of those big barriers. Two of them really struck with me. One, that second one you talked about, a word I use often is this caretaking. This family member who really doesn't have any skill for the business, but we feel the need as a family member to bring them on and give them a job so that they can live. And I understand that from an overall, taking care, but it doesn't do anything necessarily good for the business, and it's probably something you're going to have to pay for down the road, and it's not going to be a very good thing. That second piece is that valuation. Both of those, I got to believe, are striking up significant emotion when you're dealing with these business owners. When you talk to them about, do you even know the value of your business? Like they can't even envision not having their business. They grew up in it and they get emotionally attached to it. How do you help them overcome? Because I think leaders need to do that with employees as well. How do you help them overcome that emotional attachment?
Well, I'm going to state some facts here. Number one, it's men. That women do not have this issue. We get so wrapped up in our businesses. It's our identity. It's who we are at the club. It's who we are wherever. And it is the third biggest negative impact to a man's life expectancy is exiting their business or their company as an executive. And if you don't have some place you're going to go to, I mean, I have been so candid as to tell a couple, if you don't tell me, John, what you're going to be doing in January of this year after you've exited, our next meeting is going to be at a mortician's office because I want to get real with you. We have two people that have exited we've had 5 people that exited in the last 4 years. 2 of them are in acute care or assisted living. They didn't plan on, one's been in there a year already. They didn't plan on, nobody plans on falling, but we've got dementia, we've got a whole host of things. And it's, so if you're listening out there to this, the plan is not golf and chasing grandkids. It's not a plan. You have to occupy your mind. So go be a consultant, go be a leader, go do something like that every time.
Yeah, add some value to someone, right? I mean, realizing family value is very important, but there's a level of purpose to your work that you lose, that you're like, I had that for 50 years or whatever it is, and now it doesn't exist anymore. I don't go into the office at 7 a.m. and leave at 7 p.m. at night. Like, what is my purpose? And yeah, you can't play enough golf to overcome that in terms of that feeling of losing that purpose. I love that as a thought. So, one of the ways you help them overcome is what I hear is those stories. You're seeing those, and your experience with these individuals is helping you tell these folks who are attached that let me tell you what really happened before.
Right. It's very true.
You mentioned that as we hope to go to heaven one day, and you mentioned that from a faith standpoint. I mean, that's how Jesus taught, was in parables. You've got stories to tell and wisdom, and that's just another reason that folks shouldn't try to do these succession and exit planning on their own.
Correct.
I love that, and I think helping them overcome that is something that's got to be very important for you.
John,
Go ahead, Jim. Go.
You mentioned valuation, and I want to give a quick story. We have a client in Florida, and we did a valuation on him about 7 years ago, our first one. And he came back and he called me and he said, I think you need to test the employee that did this for drugs because you must have a drug problem in your firm because somebody was smoking something when they did this valuation. I'm like, well, let me look at it because I have a valuation certification. So I called him back a week later and I said, John, I think this is spot on. It might be 1 or 2% variable. And he goes, I know it. I went upstairs to a mergers and acquisition firm, investment banking firm, and they did a back of the napkin appraisal that was in 3% of yours. And what that did was it changed his outlook from 12 years to this year. So he was going to be exiting in another 5 years, which would be like 2030. And now he's able to exit in 2025. And he would have never known that had we not said, look, you're already up here. You thought you were down here, but you're up here. So it has given him the opportunity he's got all of the chips on the table that he wants, and he can decide what he wants to do.
Hey, Uncommon Leaders. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I believe in doing business with people you like and trust and not just a company name. That's why a strong personal brand is essential, whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader within a company. Brand Builders Group, the folks who have been helping me refine my own personal brand, are offering a free consultation call with one of their expert brand strategists. They'll help you identify your uniqueness, craft a compelling story, and develop a step-by-step plan to elevate your impact. So head on over to CoachJohnGallagher.com/BBG, as in Brand Builders Group, to schedule your free call and take the first step toward building a personal brand that gets you noticed for all the right reasons. That's CoachJohnGallagher.com/BBG. Now, let's get back to the episode. Having those options is so important. Being able to expose that, to your point, and the lack of knowledge, ignorance is not an excuse. It can't happen. You've got to understand what's possible. All right, let's do some teaching. You use this term called the silver tsunami. What is the silver tsunami, Jim?
There are people my age, which is 61. 10 million businesses are changing hands in the next 8 years, totaling $13.2 trillion. That's a T. $13.2 trillion in value. So if you think about a silver tsunami that's coming, and the reason it is happening is you've got the peak baby boomers, of which I'm the tail end of it, are going to be turning 65 to 70 in the next 8 years. In the next 5 years, 65 to 70, but in the next 8 years, we're all going to be knocking on age 70. There's not that much wealth in the economy just to buy out privately held business owners. So who's more likely to accomplish or weather the storm, weather the tsunami? Is it going to be those that have a plan, or those that do it like Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan, and they just hunkered down and, did what they did, and they were very lucky to do it? But I don't want to have luck for my clients over the next 5 to 8 years.
Well, that's amazing. That data is actually, as you say, tsunami, as scary as it is. So that's scary data that folks need to pay attention to. And I have been, chatting with, leaders and owners, especially in that space, who would love their families to be involved. And that the other side of that, on the people side, is that people end up having children so late right now.
Yes.
That the generational gap that exists, we're going to lose a generation as a country in terms of within 2 generations, because people are waiting so long to have children. They don't have the individuals coming up behind them to take it over. So their ego, their emotion connects to that business, and they don't want to let it go. They have so much pride tied up into it, and they try to hold on way too long to get the next family member involved.
That's an interesting point that you brought up as it relates to legacy. It's not exit or succession. This comment's about legacy. Legacy is for everybody. It's not wealthy. It is not in any way tied to legacy. The values you learn from your parents can be a legacy. I'm going to go back to King Richard, who was the father of 2 relatively well-known, and I'm being facetious when I say that, Venus and Serena Williams. He didn't teach them, hey, what you need to do is you need to learn how to make money and to, make a ton of money. What he taught them was never give up on your dream, work hard, stand up for what you believe in, and always believe that you're a winner. And if you haven't seen the movie, it is a killer movie to watch on this particular topic, because, the older generation, my generation had kids that are late. We had them late in life. I was 37 when we had my son. And if the plan is for, like it used to be when the life expectancy was about age 70 for a couple, now it's in the mid 80s. So if you think in my case, 24 years, my son's going to be almost 50 by the time his inheritance comes to him. And for those of you that have the opportunity, do something to help your kids out now while it can impact them, rather than waiting till they're in their 50s when you passed, or 55 or 60, when you passed a business or whatever it is. People want And kids want experiences with their families. And it doesn't matter if it's a road trip to the beach or a trip to, Europe. They want experiences with their family. That's a legacy that a lot of people miss and they really crave.
That's a great point too, that you have to wait. I mean, I think it's what are those experiences? What is that impact you can have early on? It's something that I even, in my mid 50s have really started to think about with my sons, a little bit closer in age in terms of 28 and 26 in their age, but they, need help now. Sometimes they need help now. They don't need help when they're 50. Whatever that help means sometimes as well. It's not just, to your
It
point,
doesn't have to
financial
be
help as
money.
well. Yeah, it
It
doesn't
can
have to be
be
money.
wisdom. It can be
Yes.
value, reminding them of values. I mean, any of those are, I mean, I'll never forget. I went off to college. My dad told me when he took me off, I was playing football, so he followed me up. He said, there's two rules you need to remember. Well, number one, if college isn't for you, somebody will always pay you to dig a ditch or pick up rocks. I used to pick up rocks for $1 an hour. And the second analogy that he told me, well, it wasn't an analogy, it was a threat. It was, if you ever do anything to embarrass the family, there's no statute of limitations on me hunting you down.
Mm.
I was like, wow, thanks, Dad. But I got a box. This is in 82. This is before FedEx, UPS. I got a box at the dorm and they called me down and said, you got a box, and no return label, holding it up, no note, just a rock. I was like, that's strange. So I asked them, I said, I have an idea who this is from, but how would they know? And they said, well, midterm grades went out last week. I'm like, I didn't have that good a midterm. But, these are the kind of things, I mean, it had an impact on me instantaneously as I better get my rear end in gear. I'm going to be picking up rocks for a living. That's legacy.
Yes. So, and you've used the word intentionality before as well, and some of the things that I've listened to, Jim, or see you post on LinkedIn, which I would encourage folks to follow you on LinkedIn, and some of the things that you're bringing out and some of the wisdom. How do you then stay intentional with your family as you build this legacy? To your point, it's not just the wealth side of it, but how are you doing that to continue to build those values? And what might you suggest to leaders who are not doing that yet today?
Sit down with your kids when they're at least 18. And so many people try to hide their success from their kids. When they're pulling out of the driveway in a Land Rover, I think they have a pretty good idea they're not going to be getting school vouchers for lunch, just a hunt. Sit down with them and talk to them about money and what it is and what it isn't. It can be the root of all evil, or it can enable you to do some really neat things. Talk about the things that are important to you, community, whatever is important to you, John. Talk about it to your kids and be upfront about it. I've had meetings with my son. I've laid my financial statement down and I said, listen, if something happens to me, you're going to have plenty, you're going to have health and education paid for, but maintenance and support is going to depend on your income. And if you don't make as much as a teacher in our community, I'm going to have the trustee donate to a charity that you wouldn't like. And I'm not going to raise a kid that's going to be eating bonbons on the beach. You're going to be a productive citizen of society, or we'll give it to charity.
I love that. I mean, that's instilling those values as well, to your point, and holding accountability. Our family just went through our first family meeting, if you will, where we reviewed very similar, just some of those things you're talking about. And we developed a family heritage vision, a legacy statement, and we developed our family core values that we can hold each other accountable to. And none of them talked about money in terms of those core values or that vision statement.
It's never about money.
Yeah.
If it is, and you really maybe messed up along the way because you had the kids focus too much on money. I mean, we do a lot of next gen planning, and we have family meetings and all of this stuff. And I have clients that are shocked when I've had 2 adult kids say, "Hey, time out a second. Thank you for doing all this, Mom and Dad. but we want to have kids. I want to be a soccer mom, or, I want to coach Little League baseball. And, don't put us in charge of this, because, we want to carve our own niche and make our own legacy as well. We're appreciative of your legacy and any financial thing that comes down the pipe, but we're going to be okay.
Love that. Jim, you're bringing all this stuff together. We've talked, you're bringing out a book here, not too long. Well, we won't, necessarily divulge when that's going to happen, but who's this book, or what's this book, and who you're writing it for? What's the impact you want to have?
Business owners. Back to the silver tsunami or whatever other storm is going to come. Everybody's going to have a succession that owns a business. The question that you need to ask yourself, if I were speaking to you as a business owner, John, is it going to be by design, or is it going to be by default? You're going to have an exit, whether it's horizontal and a disaster, or whether it's on your terms and you walk out upright with a smile. So the title of the book is Succession by Design, Not Default. And I'm very passionate about it because, we even walk through the process we take our clients through. I see so many missteps that we've been able to help clients avoid that would have been catastrophic. And an example was, I had a Midwestern company that paid their dad off. He had a note to the company, and nobody asked the dad, do they need the money? And the answer was no, but they paid it off a large chunk. And what they did was they increased the taxable estate that they're going to have to pay taxes on. And it was with the best of intentions, but, just avoiding missteps like that, minimizing taxes is the name of the game. We're very, very sensitive to taxes. We track the taxes that we help people save, because nobody wants to pay more than a nickel of their fair share to the government because of the way they spend it.
Absolutely. Jim, you help a lot of folks. How do you want folks to get in touch with you and learn more about you or about your organization?
Two ways. If you're wanting to know about the book, you can go to jimurban.com, ERBEN. More than likely, at the latest, it should be a February launch of next year. So you can learn there, or any speaking stuff that interests you. You want to know about our exit planning, it's 𝐉𝐢𝐴ssociates.com. We're in 34 states. Our litmus test isn't where you're located, it's whether you're a good person or not. And that is our, no jackass clause, if you will. But that's where you can learn a lot of information and get information if you want it.
Love that clause. Jim, I'll make sure to put both links in the show notes for the folks so they can get in touch with you. And I am encouraged, and we should talk again as you get closer to launching the book and talk about it on the podcast as well, if you're interested. Jim, I know you've had a lot of value. I appreciate your time. I just have one more question to give you the last word. And that's the same question. Maybe it's a two-part question, but same question I always ask my guests as well, is that I'm going to give you a billboard. You can put it anywhere you want to. Look at that beautiful skyline, those that are watching on YouTube. But you can put that billboard anywhere you want. What's the message you're going to put on that billboard, and why do you put it there?
Great question. It's not going to have anything to do with succession or taxes or legacy or anything, ironically. Be kind. I would put that in the biggest, boldest print. This country has become so divisive, even within political parties and political parties against other political parties, at local, at state, at national levels. And I go back, and everybody asks, my favorite generation was the World War II generation, the greatest generation. Everybody was kind and hardworking and wanting the best for the country and the family and everything else. It was, whatever, apple pie and, everything else. But we've lost that. And so I just hope we revert back to being kind.
Jim, it seems so simple. Yet it's so difficult to implement across so many different boundaries that exist. Be kind. I think that is great wisdom in just 2 words. Jim Erben, it's been a blast having the conversation with you. Again, I thank you for adding wisdom and value to the listeners of the Uncommon Leader podcast. I wish you the best in the future and look forward to connecting with you again.
John, thank you for the opportunity. I love talking with you, and I hope this helps some people out there.